Well, I guess they weren't unstoppable after all. Welcome back to the World Cup recap, day 31 of the tournament. We got the semi-finals underway, the last 4 teams in the World Cup, and coincidentally, they're the top 4 teams in the FIFA rankings. Again, wonder how that happened. Regardless, they're all great teams, they're all great matchups, so let's get into the first one here between France and Spain. Now, as said before, these two teams are obviously very familiar with each other, with this being the 3rd straight year that these teams have matched up in a semi-final of a tournament. The first time was in Euro 2024, where a 16-year-old Lamine Yamal scored one of the best goals in Euro's history, as Spain went on to win that game 2-1 and obviously go on to win the whole tournament. A year later, the teams faced off once again in the Nations League semifinals, and they produced an absolute whirlwind of a game, with Yamal and Nico Williams once again wrecking havoc among the French defense. They were up by as much as 5-1, although France late in the game were able to put up a big fight and get within just 1 goal in a crazy 9-goal thriller. But Spain going 2-0 against them, but they would eventually fall in the Nations League final. But regardless, they had the winning track record against this French team, something that their players and their manager were very much taking into account ahead of this matchup. Despite the fact that France getting into this game have clearly been the most dominant team of the tournament, with Kylian Mbappe leading the tournament in goals, Michael Olise leading in assists, Ousmane Dembele not too far behind as well, and they've just made it look so easy. Even in the times where they were tested against teams like Paraguay, they were still able to pull through in that one, as well as produce incredible attacking displays against the likes of Sweden and Morocco. But as said before, Spain have proven to be a thorn in their side. And throughout this tournament, they've displayed sort of the blueprint in how to deal with teams that have a lot of attacking threat. Having a solid backline that can not only stop these guys in their tracks, but also control the ball and move the ball forward as well. Same thing goes with their midfield. They can stop you in your tracks, as well as control the game and advance Spain forward. And their attack, while it hasn't been as explosive as it was in previous years, they are still extremely clinical. Give them a great chance or two and they will take it. So with 2 teams and 2 very distinct styles, it was really going to come down to which team were able to establish theirs, and that would pretty much decide this result. And unfortunately for France, the things that I feared from them heading into this game kind of came true. The attack just couldn't get going, and not really to their own fault, but just for the fact that Spain controls so much of the first 2 ends of the field that there's really nothing they can do. As much as I've credited the likes of Adrien Rabiot, who I didn't think had too bad of a game, even though he only played about 45 minutes of it, he was just no match for the likes of Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, and Dani Olmo. And again, like I said in the Belgium game, the fact that Pedri, a player and midfielder of his caliber, is getting benched throughout these last 2 games, and yet this team has not been able to skip a beat. Again, it goes back to what I've said about how this team in this tournament have not relied on individual players. They don't care about necessarily your pedigree in tournaments prior. We know Nico Williams has stepped up for them in the past, as has Pedri, but in this case, Luis de la Fuente is going off of what he sees and what is working the best. And Fabian Ruiz and Alex Baena have proven to be those stopgaps that have absolutely changed the outlook of this Spain team. Dani Olmo as well. He was another player that in the previous Euros wasn't really a factor until the later parts of this tournament, but in this tournament as well, he's kind of been that, but also been a mainstay for them as far as the starting lineup. And again, I understand that as a neutral, right? You might see how Spain plays and think, this is just boring. You want to see the attacking football. You want to see them go for it. You want to see Lamine Yamal have all the freedom in the world to do what he does. But that's just not football. Spain are out there to win games and get results and do it in whatever way is possible and whatever way is most effective and best for them. And that is what they've done in this tournament. They know Lamine Yamal is not at the 100% ability that we know he is. Same thing with Nico Williams. But again, they just have so much quality in their team and such a great understanding of each other that they can be able to play different styles and play different ways and still be able to churn out results and churn out wins. This tournament, again, they've been more reliant on their defensive shape. They've been more reliant on their midfields, particularly Rodri, which, again, a little bit risky considering he may not be the same player that he once was prior to, obviously, the big knee injury that he had. But this game for him might have been one of the best in his career. He was just absolutely running that midfield. And it's just so impressive to watch, man. He is genuinely going to go down as one of the best players in his position. Yes, he obviously has that Ballon d'Or, which could definitely take him above plenty of guys in that regard. But just the control that he has, not only when it comes to winning the ball back, which he does better than almost anyone, but his on-the-ball ability is sensational. And he's obviously a very big player for his position. He's 6'3", and you see it when he wins the ball back, the way he stretches his legs, and it's like, there's nothing you could do, man. It's ridiculous, man. When this guy is on his game, he's easily one of, if not maybe the best midfielder in the world. Especially when you consider the fact that he has been the main consonant of that midfield. We've seen guys like Dani Olmo and Fabian Ruiz and Pedri, like I mentioned, come in and out of this lineup. Rodri has been there the entire time. And again, his ability to adapt and play with these different players and still have so much success with it, it's sensational, man. Rodri was the big turning point for the Spain team. He was their main X factor, I think. If they were going to get the 2024 version of him, which they absolutely have, it was going to be hard for any team to really get past them, including this France team who, as I said before, the likes of Mbappe and Elise and Dembele could not get going whatsoever. It was strange, though, because earlier in this tournament, I credited Didier Deschamps and I credited this France team for being able to all get those attackers playing well and playing in such symmetry. It feels like they all had their different spaces covered, right? Mbappe in his central or left, Elise down the middle, Dembele right or left side, he could do either or. But in this game, they just felt very discombobulated. Again, a lot of this was probably down to Spain's tactics and how they were going to play each of these guys, but it was still pretty bizarre. From knowing how each of those players have played throughout this tournament, how they managed to dominate their oppositions, this game, even from the jump, you didn't really feel too confident in those guys getting anything. But this Spain just managed to turn an attack that was not only probably the most lethal in this World Cup, but being considered as one of the most lethal in the history of this tournament into nothing. Absolutely nothing. But once again, I have nothing but credit to how Spain went about this game. Again, I know a lot of people will see it and say, oh, this is not entertaining. This is not, world champion level. Yes, it very much is. Because this is exactly what Spain was doing back in 2010. And that team gets credited as one of the best World Cup teams of all time, even though they did drop their first game. This team kind of followed that similar path of a disappointing opening game where they couldn't beat Cape Verde. But the rest of this tournament, they've absolutely ran through. They've won 6 in a row. And against teams like Uruguay, Portugal, Belgium, and now France, it is an impressive run. You can't even lie. It may not be the most dominant as far as how they've done it, but when it comes to their strength of opponents, you can't deny them for that. It easily puts them as, in my opinion, the favorite to win the World Cup, regardless of who comes out in that other semifinal. Now, as I said, Spain started this game pretty modestly, but around the 20th minute, an opportunity sparked itself. With Spain doing their usual attacking buildup of Laporte stepping up to the middle, finding Cucurella darting down that left-hand side. He put a cross in, which at first didn't look too effective until Luca Digne missed the ball with his head. He turns around, Lamine Yamal is right there. Now, if you're in this position, as bad as this would be, if a player's coming at you with the ball right in the box and you're not really in the best position to get it, you just let him have it, man. You let him go past. You don't even risk the chance of causing a foul in that situation. But unfortunately, Lucas Digne just completely lost where he was. He tries to kick whatever he thinks is the ball. Instead, it's the back of Lamine Yamal's leg in the box. He goes down. It's a clear penalty. Again, just a terrible, terrible mistake from Lucas Digne. Again, that left-hand side for France has been easily their weak point. Yeah, Theo Hernandez at the start of the tournament, he was not good. And now Lucas Digne coming up with this mistake. Definitely an area that Spain wanted to attack, especially with Lamine Yamal in that position. And at first I was slightly surprised that Mikel Oyarzabal was given the penalty, but then seeing his penalty chart of how he's managed to make pretty much all of his penalties, I felt pretty confident with him stepping up for this one. And he made absolutely no mistake of it. Just a perfect penalty. No chance for Maignan to save that one, and Spain pick up the early lead. Again, this goes back to what I said for Spain's attack. They're always going to take advantage of teams' mistakes. In that sense, they're so clinical. They will make you pay. And in that case, Lucas Digne was paid for that one. But that wouldn't be the only disappointment to come out of France's defense, because a few minutes later, William Saliba could not continue. He had been dealing with back issues since even before the tournament started. There was a little bit of worry that he might actually miss the tournament because of it, but he decided to go out and play through it. Commendable for him, but unfortunately, it all caught up to him in this game. And 30 minutes in, he was out of the game. A big loss for France, obviously losing their rock of that back line. And then obviously for Saliba as well, even with the back issues he was having, he was still one of the best defenders of this tournament. Him and Upamecano formed a great partnership. This definitely leaves some concern for Saliba heading into his next club season and going forward. Back injuries are nothing to be played with, man. And the fact that he already dealt with those issues and decided to play through it and re-aggravate it or make it worse, definitely concerning, even though he still is quite young. But from there, like I said, Spain were able to play through this game pretty calmly. There wasn't really too many points of concern for them in this one. In the second half, France tried to make a couple more changes. Desiree Doué came on for Barcola. Kariu Kone came on for Rabiot as well. But that brings us obviously to the goal that really decided things, where Spain just have this incredible ability of flicking the switch, going from slower pace, slower passing style to all of a sudden they go 1-2, advancing balls forward, and boom, that's it. In this case, Pedro Porro's on the right. He plays it to Olmo, who gets the attention of two defenders, and then Pedro Porro springs back up, a give and go play. He's through, and he makes no mistake on the finish. His second goal of the tournament for a right back. That's pretty impressive. But more crucially, it was the second goal for Spain that put them up 2-0. And from this point, you just really felt like it was their day. Even though France have shown the ability to come back from bad situations like the World Cup final in 22 and even a little bit of last year's game as well, from the way this game was going, you felt like they were just completely out of it. And again, those quick passes, France just could not deal with. It was the same thing literally just a few minutes later when Lamine Yamal was put through on goal. He did his signature cut in and strike with the left foot. A brilliant finish from him, but he was just offside. Again, these offsides in this tournament, they're decided by millimeters. He was millimeters offside in that one with a little bit of his shoulder. And that would have been just an incredible cap-off moment for Yamal, especially against this France team that we know he's had a bit of a thing against in the past. Obviously, with how he's performed in the last 2 years and with all the buildup of everyone asking him, how do you think of France? What do you think of France? And he's like, well, I'm not worried about France. We beat them before. And that was the message and the sentiment carried out by this entire Spain team. And that is exactly how they played on the field. They weren't scared of this French attack. Unlike teams like Morocco, we especially saw in the last game, from the jump, they were not playing around. They were playing defensive, a little too defensive for your liking, and did not look any kind of threat against this French team. They eventually succumbed to them. And if Spain were to do the same thing, it would have been the same result. But they didn't. They're still obviously a defensive team, but not defensive in the sense of all hands on deck, everyone goes back. No, they put trust in who they have on the field as far as their double pivot in the midfield and their back line, and they did their jobs perfectly. And when you have guys like Dani Olmo and Lamine Yamal and even Marcelo Yathabal and stuff producing moments of attacking brilliance, even their fullbacks as well, like I mentioned before, Cucurella and Porro have been sensational, man. You still have so many options and so many avenues that teams are still going to be overwhelmed when you have to face that on the other side. And that is exactly what happened with this France team. Again, I've said in previous games, even in the Morocco game, where I did credit them for how they played as far as defensively, but at the same time, I also mentioned that Morocco really didn't offer much of a threat. They really haven't been offered much of that threat from any team that they've really played in this tournament, and Spain was able to give them that threat, and they did not really pass the test, in all honesty. And again, even in the later stages of the game, France just could not get anything going, whether it wasn't their day or the fact that Spain was just absolutely sensational as far as how they executed this game from start to finish. There was really no way out for France unless they got genuinely some individual moment of brilliance from an Mbappe, who has now gone scoreless in each semifinal that he has played in both the World Cup and the Euros. And of course, I say all this to say that Spain win this game, an impressive 2-0 win, and they go on to the World Cup final. Once again, like I said, I believe this team, regardless of who comes out on the other side, will be the favorite in that matchup. They have this formula, they have this style that no team has really been able to break. Obviously against Cape Verde, their attack was not able to get going, and obviously against Belgium in the quarterfinal, they conceded their first goal, but that's been their only goal. 6 clean sheets in 7 games. Absolutely incredible, and I don't really see any of the other two teams being able to fully break this Spain team and make them have to adjust to a different style or whatever the case may be. And if you told me before this tournament that Spain would get to this point, the World Cup final, and Lamine Yamal only scoring 1 goal, I wouldn't believe you, honestly. But Spain have proved time and time again they do not rely on individual ability to get them to these deep stages in tournaments. It's how they come together. It's how they play as a team. It's how they conduct themselves. They don't let any of the outside noise get to them. They don't let any ego get in their way. They come together with one goal in mind, winning results. It's not about who's the main man, who's the one scoring the goals, who's the one that wants to get the golden boot or the golden ball. It's not about that for them. They're about winning and winning as a team. And that right there is the difference. Now, I'm not sitting up here and saying that all these other teams are the antithesis of that, but Spain is a team easily best exemplifies all of these traits, and it's easy to see why they become so successful and why they've been the best national team over the last couple of years, and they will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. Again, this team is still relatively young. I know the likes of Rodri and stuff will be well into their 30s by the time we get to 2030, their home World Cup. But even with that, you trust that this team is going to just keep churning out players that will go straight into this national team, fit absolutely seamlessly, and they'll just keep producing win after win after win. I get that there was a lot of doubt with the Spanish team, especially coming off of previous World Cups. Again, prior to this, they hadn't won a single knockout game since they won it in 2010. Well, like I've said already, this is looking like another 2010 run for this team. Now, as for France, once again, very disappointing with this game. Yes, the attack went completely silent against a much stronger opponent. Not something where it's like that was to be expected. Obviously, with France, the way they're playing, they were so confident. You would thought they would at least get something in this one. But yeah, Spain proved once again that it isn't just the attack that can win you games and win you World Cups. It has to be the whole team, has to be quality. And Spain certainly has them beat in 2 of the 3 of those spots on the pitch. And again, that was what was going to decide it. If anything was going to be off with that as far as Spain goes, France would have got the win. No problem. But again, Spain are just way too good in that. I think if the question comes down to if this game is either a disappointing for France in their attack and this is a failure for them, or if this is just how successful Spain is and how good they really are, I would lean more towards the latter. Spain certainly has this team's number, and I don't know if any kind of individual player or tactical switches or management, whatever the case is, could really stop what they've done. And speaking of management, obviously for France, this is the end of the Didier Deschamps era. He has obviously one more game being the 3rd place game on Saturday, but this is going to be it for him. Zidane will be the next guy up. I'm very curious to see what kind of tactical changes and things he will implement to this current French team to really take them over the top, because we've established at this point over the last couple of years that France, for as good as they are, for as talented as they are, is clearly a level behind Spain. And that should be the main focus for Zidane and this team going forward, is how to beat them. Obviously not the sole focus, because if that happens, then you're obviously going to run into trouble with other teams, and those other teams will probably find a way to beat you. So still keep what you have as far as how clinical we know that attack can be, but you got to find those extra areas, those extra little things that can be able to get you over the top of teams like Spain that have beat them 3 years on the bounce and have clearly established themselves as the top team in Europe and possibly the top team in the world. But as I said, once again, I mean, this really just comes down to the quality that they have in midfield and defense. Spain just has that on lock. So we'll see, again, within the next 2 years, 4 years, if France can be able to produce some great prospects up in those midfield positions and those defensive positions that can really make the difference for this team going forward, and if they can bring them to any bigger of a spot than they have achieved over the last couple of years. And again, like I said, for Spain, luckily for them, their attack is still pretty young. Mbappe is going to be just in his 30s by the time we get to the 2030 World Cup, let alone the next Euro. Same thing with Dembele and Elise and Barcola and Doué. France are going to have a plethora of attack. That's not the concern here at all. But it's all about the positions and what is behind them that is going to carry this team forward. See what I did there? But that is going to do it for day 31 of the World Cup. We have one more semifinal, an absolutely insane one. I cannot wait for that. England against Argentina. And I definitely expect it to be a much better game than what we saw here. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe for daily World Cup content. And hopefully at this point, I'm not too much of a curse. I know I've been repping France a lot in this tournament and they've lost. Likewise with England. But I'm still going with them today. 3 lines. It's coming home. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm hoping for at least we get that Euro final rematch. That'll be insane. Oh, and also stay safe if you're in Ontario, because The skies are very orange, kind of matching the Spain flag, so maybe that's a sign that this really is Spain's time. They're going to win the World Cup. I don't know. We'll see. Let's play football.